I have a theory about 12-string electric guitars, and the theory is that they're significantly underutilized in black metal. For other subgenres of metal, there are good reasons that I mentioned in the last 12-string video why it might not work out, like issues with distortion and harmonic overtones. But I think there are even better arguments to be made that black metal is the exception to the rule, and 12-string electric guitars are perfect for the subgenre. First, let me reiterate some points from the previous video on 12 strings. The double string action fretboard is much more difficult to play. It's slower to navigate up and down for chord changes, so the faster subgenres like thrash and death metal are out of the question. With the double stringed action and increased tension, I would never dream of playing solos on this guitar. Also, it's much harder to pick cleanly, and you're not going to get a tight sound either, so the technical stuff is gone as well. You can achieve the same effect much better using an octave pedal on a standard guitar. Now, when it comes to tone, the inherent brightness of the 12 strings caused by the octave pairing isn't compatible really with the philosophy of doom or death metal, where you are adding strings to your guitar, but they're bass strings and you're tuning lower and deeper, not higher and brighter. This is just not the ideal instrument for most types of metal. The result is, when you hear a 12-string guitar in metal, it's used just like a 12-string would be on, say, a Led Zeppelin song, as a regular old, clean 12-string. And never as a primary instrument for distorted metal riffing. So then, what makes black metal so special? It's fast like thrash and death where 12 strings don't work, but the riffing style of black metal, the way you move along the fretboard for chord changes, is vastly different from any other style of music. So calling back to my classic video on two-note black metal riffing, black metal riffs are built off of a moving melody and a stable pedal point, which forms the chord progression. The example, one of my best black metal riffs from the song Snowblind. So you can see that the tempo of the notes is fast and we're playing 16th notes, but when you tremolo pick a black metal riff, you're actually holding your chord for at least an entire quarter note. In the case of Snowblind, a half note actually per chord change. So the time in between significant movements is actually long enough that the double string action doesn't really reduce your precision. Also, the act of tremolo picking itself is pretty forgiving, and playing tight is not the most important thing with black metal riffing. Everything should blend together in that wall of sound, so you don't need to be metronome perfect on the 16th notes, even though it's pretty easy with enough practice. So the downsides of a 12-string guitar do not significantly affect your ability to play black metal riffs. Now let's get into the pros. The major feature of the 12-string is this full layered sound effect, which is what black metal composition is kind of all about, weaving layers together to create that massive wall. That's a major upside of this guitar. You get thicker, fuller chords that occupy a much wider and more complex frequency space. But the most important contribution that a 12-string guitar can add is to your tone. Calling back to another one of my classic videos, brightness is the key to black metal tone. You want low gauge strings, super slinkies, E standard tuning, bridge pickup, max the tone knob, cut the bass on your amp, anything you can do to raise that treble and bring out the melody that's nested in your riff. What I want to do next is an experiment. I want to play the same exact riff 4 times, and I'm going to use the one that I played earlier, my song Snowblind from the album The Pathway. I'm going to record all these riffs onto the same track using the same settings and EQ. The only difference is the guitar that I'm using and the strings that I'm playing on. First, I'm going to play on a 6th string, my Jackson RR3 in the original key of E. So that's going to be how the riff sounded on the original recording. Basically, it's just a black metal riff, but in my opinion, it's actually a little dull and kind of muddy. Let me transpose this up 1 string to the key of A for the next iteration of this riff. Now that sounds pretty great. It's a little brighter and a little bit just more exciting. There's a lot more energy to it. Now I'm going to switch back to the 12th string, my Reverend Airwave. This is going to be in the key of E, as I originally played it at the beginning of this video. So that added brightness from the octave paired strings, to me it gives this riff the same exact feeling as when I played it in the key of A on the 6th string. On top of that, the double strings just give the chords a little bit more width, so you get a fuller sound as well. If I were to play this song in the key of A, it would almost be too bright and too thin. So in my opinion, the great utility of a 12-string electric guitar is on the compositional side of black metal. When I just started out, I wrote most of my riffs in E minor, but some riffs just came across a little bit too dull. The only thing I could do to brighten them up was to transpose them up to the key of A, as I showed, where they almost always sound better. But some songs don't play as well in A as they do in E, and that has to do with the open B string being useful on certain arpeggios because it's tuned to the major third instead of the perfect fourth like the rest of the strings. For example, one of my first songs, Wanderer, contains this arpeggio, which is going to sound extra cool on the 12th string. So having that open B string is mandatory. This song cannot be played in the key of A, and if the riff just sounds too dull in E, then I have to live with it, which is what I had to do on the song when I originally recorded it for my demo. Well, on a 12 string, riffs in the key of E sound just as bright as riffs in A played on a 6 string, if not even brighter, but still with the heaviness of the fact that it's on the key of E. Likewise, the opposite can be true. For songs that have to be written in the key of A, the 12 string might actually play it too bright, unless of course you're going for that Transylvanian hunger sound. In that case, it sounds even better. I've had this guitar for about 6 months, and what I've been doing to incorporate its unique properties is to do my black metal rhythm double tracking with one set of riffs on the 6th string and the other set on the 12th string, so I can strike a good balance between the two guitars. I think this is something that black metal guitarists really need to look into, as I've not heard of anyone else playing distorted black metal rhythms on a 12-string guitar besides me right now. So I hope I've made a strong case as to why 12-string electric guitars are heavily underutilized in black metal and might potentially be the next big development in the sound of modern black metal music.